Lieutenant's Log, April 13th, 2016. So it is finally here. We have the first trailer for the Doctor Strange movie that's coming out this year. For those who don't know, I'm a big Doctor Strange fan. I'm a huge fan specifically of the Lee Ditko run and some stuff after that, certainly. But those are the comics that I came to love the character through, and I think is kind of the definitive run on the character. And I just never thought we'd see the day where a Doctor Strange movie would get made. So it's just really cool to finally get to see some footage from this, and I figured it'd be fun to go over the trailer and talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that I noticed in it and some of the things I really liked about it. So first and foremost, I have to say that Scott Derrickson, I think, made, from what we've seen of the movie so far, a really beautiful looking film. I was very pleased that Marvel went with a horror background director for this movie, because the early Lee Ditko Doctor Strange comics have a very horror influence kind of vibe to them. At least at the beginning, before the book hits its stride and becomes this like ethereal, trippy sort of thing, it's just sort of Doctor Strange walking into haunted houses and solving mysteries. So I thought it was really cool that they got a horror guy to sort of go back to the roots of the character, to some degree at least. Other than that, it looks like the origin that they're going to do in the movie is pretty consistent plot-wise with what we got in the comics. Doctor Strange gets into a car accident. He has nerve damage in his hands and can't be a surgeon anymore. That's his profession. It looks like he's going to be a little bit more noble in this than he was in his origin in the comic books, which was something I sort of expected, because the arrogant person that is sort of redeemed through getting their superpowers thing was done with Iron Man so well in the MCU, so it would feel sort of redundant to do that again. Doctor Strange is a similar character arc to the Tony Stark that we see in the movies in his origin, so I figured it would be they'd make it a little bit different, and I don't mind changing him to be a little bit more noble. It'll be interesting to see if they incorporate any of the arrogant nature of the character into what they do with him here. I hope they do, because that would be a really good character flaw, I suppose, something for the character to overcome, and do it in a different way than we do with Tony Stark in the movies. Doctor Strange is certainly less snarky, at least. So, other things. This movie looks like it's going to be dealing with the nature of alternate realities. Which is sort of expected and unexpected for me at the same time. I expected to see alternate dimensions, which I guess are kind of alternate realities. This one seems to be dealing with the alternate reality of the Earth and the life that Doctor Strange is living throughout the movie. We see him like in a tuxedo looking out a window and then looking really disheveled, and the Ancient One talking about changing his life, and the reality that he's living in being one of many, and using magic to bring about that change, which is sort of cool. I hope that this is sort of the introduction to the magical world, and then if this movie does well enough, we can start going to places like the Dark Dimension. And I don't think Dormammu is going to be in this initial movie. Maybe we'll get set up. Who knows? But yeah, I'm cool with going with the alternate reality thing for the first movie, and grounding it somewhat, because I think Kevin Feige said that they really wanted to ground this one, sort of like what they did with the Thor movies, where it's not total high fantasy, like it is in Thor. It's sort of half that. It's got one foot in each world, I suppose, and I think this movie's trying to do the same sort of thing. It looks like Rachel McAdams, for example, talking about that point as well, is playing a character that Doctor Strange works with in a hospital. I was hoping that she was going to play Klee, which is the character that Doctor Strange meets in the Dark Dimension in the comics. It's this sort of principal love interest throughout most of his history. And who knows, if we're playing with alternate realities, maybe there's a reality where Rachel McAdams can play this character and Klee at some point. I mean, the possibilities are sort of endless, I suppose, which is awesome. That's one of the things I love about Doctor Strange as a character. I thought it was cool to see a brief glimpse of their version of Mordo. He's got a different first name that I can't remember off the top of my head, and they obviously changed his ethnicity. He's no longer... I think he was Transylvanian in the comics. He was of Eastern European descent anyway. And The Mordo in the comics is cool, and I like that character, but he's a real mustache twirling villain type from most of his history. So I don't mind them changing that up a bit. It looks like their relationship and dynamic is going to be significantly different in this movie. They're going to be like friends and fellow students with the Ancient One throughout the beginning of the movie, which is sort of cool depending on how they do it. I'm going to be interested to see. I hope that Wong still has a significant presence in the movie because he's sort of like Doctor Strange's Alfred. For those who aren't familiar with his character, he's like Doctor Strange's butler, and they're like best friends in the comics. So I'm hoping that Wong has a significant presence in the movie, and he isn't overshadowed by Mordo if they're going to have a dynamic too. So we'll see. They could certainly do both of those relationships well, but I'm hoping that they play with both those characters equally, and they both get their time to shine. I really liked that we saw the straight up spirit form that Doctor Strange goes into many times in the comics in here. They seem like they're going no holds barred with a lot of the magic stuff in this, which is very cool. The spirit form that Doctor Strange takes on in the comics is something he does all the time. He goes into spirit form to travel through dimensions, and there are entire issues where Doctor Strange leaves his body and goes and fights things in alternate dimensions, and then returns to his body. And sometimes his body is in danger, and the stakes are really high because if his body dies, then obviously his spirit is relinquished. So a lot of that stuff is really cool, and I hope they play with that in the movie. And if it's about alternate realities, I expect them to. So that should be pretty cool. I'm also wondering who Mads Mikkelsen is playing in this movie. He looks like he's going to be the principal villain of the piece, and we're going to save Mordo and Dormammu for later. If Mads Mikkelsen isn't playing Dormammu, he doesn't look like him, but then again, Dormammu is a giant purple-suited guy with a flaming head, so I mean, I don't know that we'd ever get something like that in the movies, even though Marvel does do the whole, as comic accurate as possible thing. They haven't been afraid to change villains. Like for example, Malekith in Thor: The Dark World would look significantly different than he did in the comics. He looks much less cool, but his design in the comics is kind of goofy, and it would look kind of weird on screen. So if that is Dormammu, I kind of like the design, and Mads Mikkelsen's a good choice for that. But I don't know. The look of Mads Mikkelsen's character doesn't strike me as being similar to anything that I remember from the comics, and I just might be forgetting something at the moment because it's been a while since I went back and read that original Lee Ditko run and some of the other Strange stuff that I own. So I might be forgetting someone. I've heard Nightmare's name thrown around a lot, which would be potentially interesting. I think he could work well in this movie about the nature of alternate realities because dreams, people often speculate, are reflections of reality to some degree, or reflections of the underlying psychology of a human being. Not a lot is understood about dreams, so I think that would be a cool realm to play in with this movie about the nature of reality. That'd be really interesting. I really like Benedict Cumberbatch in this role. I think he's going to kill it. He looks like the spitting image of Stephen Strange in the comics. I wasn't sure about some of the voiceovers in the trailer as to whether or not Benedict Cumberbatch is using his British or American accent in this. Maybe I'm just not good at picking up on the tenor of his voice or whatever. But I wasn't able to identify just by hearing what some of the lines that were spoken over footage where people weren't visibly talking who was talking. And at the end, he just says, "Teach me," and that wasn't enough for me to tell. So I'm going to be interested to see in future trailers and things like that if Cumberbatch keeps his British accent or puts on an American accent. That'll be interesting because Doctor Strange is supposed to be from Greenwich Village in New York, but in a lot of adaptations, he keeps his British accent because that just makes him sound cooler. And I'm kind of accustomed to Doctor Strange having a British accent, despite the fact that he's a New Yorker. It's kind of something that I don't really care about. It's weird. But for some reason, I just prefer him to have a British accent. So I would be fine with him keeping it. But if he does American, that's fine too. He can put on an American accent. I saw him in Black Mass, and he played a person from Boston. He played Whitey Bulger's brother and did a pretty convincing Boston accent, which is a hard American accent to nail. So yeah, I'm just very pleased with everything we're seeing from the trailer so far. It's just a teaser, so we don't have a lot of plot stuff other than the fact that Doctor Strange is trying to overcome the injury he gets in the car accident, which is to be expected. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what you guys think of the trailer. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, I would imagine for most people, this is a character that you're not familiar with at all. Because Doctor Strange, for a long time, has been really obscure. He hasn't really had an ongoing series of his own in years. I think the Jason Aaron one is the first one in maybe a decade. I mean, I don't know the exact years, but Doctor Strange has been out of the sort of mainstream Marvel consciousness for a long time, and has always remained sort of obscure. Even since he debuted and onward, he never retained a huge readership, despite, in my opinion, some of the great stories that were told with the character over the years. So I'm gonna be very interested to see, for people that are laymen who don't know a lot about this character, if the movie interests you. I'm obviously biased because I love the character so much. I'm very, very excited about this movie, but I'm very excited to see what the general audience reaction is going to be, and even the general fan audience that doesn't know a whole lot about the character. So sound off in the comments as to what you think, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.